Hi, and welcome to the Tea with Intuitives podcast. I'm Brittany, an esoteric healer, Akashic record reader, and authentic empowerment coach.
And I'm Meli, an Akashic reader, past life psychic, and channeling coach. Each episode, we answer one of your questions about spirituality, the Akashic records, energy healing, meditation, spirit guides, and the unseen world.
So, we invite you to grab your cup of tea while we answer today's question by a listener who wants to know how to deal with non-spiritual people. And we're also going to talk about spiritual coming outs, which I love. But first, Meli, what tea are you drinking today?
I am drinking a green tea. It's from China, and it is called Du Yun Mao Jian. So I hope my Chinese accent was good.
That sounded really, I don't know, to me it sounded accurate. I think you did great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I am sticking with my matcha. Sugar-free vanilla, lots of oat milk.
That's a winner.
Yeah, I love it. Meli.
Okay. I think we should start about at the beginning and when we do our spiritual coming outs. What do you think?
Yeah, you go first. I like it.
Okay. So my spiritual coming out happened late in life, and I just started talking about it when I turned 40, 41. So it's really recent that I'm open about it. And actually what forced me to you're never forced to, but made me talk about it was having that Meli guidance business, because my life changed and I started giving readings. So it was part of my workday, and it was part of the reason that my life was so busy and full, because I'm also a translator and proofreader. And so at first what I did is that my husband was the first to know, of course, that I was on a spiritual path. He knew. It all started with me wanting to be a better mom, being less stressed because I was transforming into a monster. And I was like, life cannot keep going on like this. That was about when I was 35. I was like, there's more to this. I cannot keep going on. I'm maybe halfway, and I don't want to do the second half being so stressed all the time. So that's when I started reading books about, self-help, spirituality, and I started reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and it helped me a lot. And all of this got me to a point where I remembered reading about Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, and then I ended up reading The Instruction by Ainsley MacLeod, who's a psychic. And that is how I decided I wanted to have a chat with my spirit guides. The goal wasn't to become a psychic who gives reading, because I already had a full-time job that was very successful. So that was never the case. But it happened and it changed my life. So I had to mention it to the people close to me. So my husband saw me go through all of this. And he's from a Buddhist family, so it was pretty easy because they are so open to the other world and the ancestors around you. So he was very, very open. And then I chose the people that I wanted to tell, and people that I couldn't imagine living my life without them knowing. And I started with my brother because he has had the most amazing, intense experience with spirits. And so I knew that he was going to be open. And I was so afraid of being called like a fraud or a weirdo, or just, someone who's imagining all of this, and I was losing my time doing all of this. And I was so surprised. He was so supportive. And then I told my sister, who's not particularly spiritual, but had a reading with someone once. So I was like, okay, I think she's going to be open. And then she was very encouraging. And then the next step was talking to my mom, who's really not spiritual, and basically thought up until that point that all psychics and mediums were charlatans. But I'm her daughter, so she didn't think I was crazy or a fraud or anything. She was surprisingly open, and even at one point I gave her a card reading that summer. So yeah, I was really happy. I was reassured, but I didn't need to tell everyone around me. I don't think that's needed. Like, my neighbors don't know what to do. They just know that I'm a translator proofreader, and they don't need to know more unless they start talking about spirituality or psychics or anything. Then I see or feel an opening and I go for it. But for me, the spiritual coming out was telling my family and my friends closest to me, and having that Instagram profile that started, it didn't even start with it being full on a business, but then people came to me and asked for readings, so it became one. But I just needed to go out there and work through my fear of judgment and self-expression and see where that led me. And that's how the coming out helped me be more in my truth and more authentic, and it ended up helping me live one of my life missions.
Okay, one thing I want to mention I think is so interesting about kind of like our reawakening or our awakening to
Mm-hmm.
really our multi-dimensional self and our intuitive capability. There's always some, I don't want to use the word trigger, but there's like a bell. There's always like a bell that rings that wakes us up. And for you, that sort of bell ringing was your child and that
Yeah.
relationship. And it makes me think of your child of like, before you incarnated, of that little soul raising their hand and going, okay, I will incarnate and we'll have this relationship, and I will be your bell that rings that helps wake you up to remembering who you really are. Like, they take on that role in that soul contract, and it's so beautiful. And the reason I'm saying this is because we don't always have it that easy. It's not always that, of sort of an easier relationship transition. For some of us, it's an abuser that wakes us up. For some of us, it's, a traumatic childhood that wakes us up really early. Um, so just know that if you had a rude kind of awakening, if your spiritual awakening wasn't um, as easy of a transition as maybe some other people have had, just know that those souls that pushed you in the direction of where you are today signed up to be that bell that was going to ring for you, that woke you up. They signed up to be that antagonist in your life that was going to push you on a different path.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever was instrumental in helping you really open your eyes to who you truly are and your sort of soul self, send them love and send them a big gratitude of thank you, because they were a part of your journey in helping you really wake up. And for me, I was adopted when I was 10. So my adopted grandmother, when I turned 14, put me in her energy healing classes. And it was like, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, I do. I do want to learn this. So at 14, I started taking her classes. And even though that was an awakening for me, I had come from a very traumatic first, honestly, up until that point, there was still trauma happening around me. At that point, my biological family was still involved in my life, even though I had transitioned into a new home. They were still a part of my life until I was 18 and graduated high school. I don't talk to my biological family anymore. The only one I talk to, there's a couple, my cousin and my sister, but that's it. I don't talk to my biological family. But I still appreciate the role they played in leading me to where I was going to go. Without me choosing to incarnate into that family, I wouldn't have started energy healing classes at the age of 14 with my mentor, with my grandmother, right? So those circumstances are so specific and so divinely orchestrated that they allowed me to have an awakening or to have this greater understanding at a younger age. But spiritual awakenings, in my opinion, they keep coming.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
never ending, right, Melly? Like
Mm.
they
No,
never
it's
end.
like you're going like this, whoops, like my father died, spiritual awakening. You're going like this, whoops, oh, it's hard with Rosalie when she's 4 years old, boop. And then something else comes up, talking to the spirit guides or another challenge, boop, boop, boop. So it's many spiritual awakenings. And thanks for that. I mean, there's always room to grow. If you're like me, I'm a thinker soul type it's one of my soul types with a mission of exploration. We want, and I have a mission of change. So we want to grow, we want to learn new things. And so it keeps life exciting.
It really does. Yeah. It's interesting. When I was 16, my grandmother looked at me and said, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was getting psychic readings. Like she was taking me to see readers and like it became a natural part of my life. And she looked at me and one day, I was 16 and she said, life is going to be like hiking up a mountain to just get to the top of that mountain to see there are so many more mountains
Yes.
that you're going to hike up one day. I did not understand what she meant until like a year ago, until 10 years had passed until I was
Wow.
26. I did not understand what she meant. So really like life is going to be a lot of pushing up mountains to just hike another one, to hike another one, to go up another one. And I actually gave a reading last week. And one thing they shared that I hold very deep in my core, it was so beautiful, is that life isn't about walking up a stairwell or, driving in a car or floating down a river. Life is about moving in circles. And when you have completed moving in that circle, the doorway opens for you to enter another circle, and then you move in that
It's a
circle.
spiral going up.
It's a spiral going up. It's never, and sometimes you're not going up at all. Sometimes the circles just keep overlapping one another,
Mm.
right? Because we have patterns that are so intricate that we might always go back to and then move on from and then go back to. So it's like life is like overlapping circles, and we choose with our perception and how much we want to grow and learn and who we are, what circle we're going to be able to enter at what time. We
Mm.
choose with our free will. So, spiritual awakenings, they are going to forever be here in your life. If someone or a reader or a healer ever says, I can heal you, if they ever say, I know what you need, or I have guidance for you, or I can be your guru, like I know more than you, I would say that's a big red flag, because if someone's ever perceiving that they're done with their own growth,
Mm.
um, that to me would be a red flag, because we are always growing, always, 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 always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And now, how about the listener's question wanting to know how to deal with non-spiritual people?
Mm.
Um, you know what? The thing is, I think we need to remember that we're not here to prove anything. We're not here to, as you said, Brittany, to save other people. I think it's best just to be yourself and be an example of your values, of your spiritual values. So when I'm with someone who's not spiritual, I won't go ahead and talk about spiritual guides and the astral plane, but I will mostly talk about intuition, because that is accepted by people, that there's intuition. So it's not something that is threatening. So, and I'll mention things about just intuitions, acceptance of the present moment, and things like that, that aren't, too deep into spirituality. And also, if someone really doesn't want to talk about self-development and any of that, I won't talk about it. And honestly, I wouldn't be happy if my life was to talk about spiritual stuff all the time. There would be a huge imbalance there.
Mhm.
Um, I like to watch TV series and movies and laugh with my husband. We play board games, we play video games, like we go take walks outside, and we need that. We just need that balance of being human. And so when you're with non-spiritual people, just talk about that other stuff that really lightens your soul, and you don't need to go deep with them if they're not ready to, but they are going to feel that you are at a certain point in your life where you have acceptance or you have more peace, and that is going to be inspiring for them. And spirit guides say that all the time: be the inspiration, because maybe you're not inspiring that person right now because they have too much going on and they're not open to it. But in 10 years, they might remember you and you're going to have a huge impact.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. That's what I would say too. Um, Lead by example, be yourself. Um, it's really interesting because, religion plays a huge role in this. A lot of people who find our work, at least my work, tend to come from strong, Christian backgrounds and are very unsure of how to navigate a very Christian family when they have changed their views of spirituality. That can be really tricky. One thing I'll say, I've said it before, is for people who don't understand energy healing, and I know that they are either very religious or closed off to thinking in a different way about the possibility of things like energy healing, I say it is a powerful prayer that I offer to hold space with other people, and I pray with them. I do a powerful prayer with them. And that is a way that I have had to find to navigate the line between the way other people think and view me versus me not triggering them, but also pushing them to think in a greater way, like a bigger way. So it can be very tricky, but also I don't think putting other people's needs before your own help in this situation. The only reason I'm saying this is because if you go too long without sharing your truth, it can actually block a lot of your energetic systems. For example, your throat chakra. That is directly related to you sharing and speaking your truth. So if you can find a balance of respecting other people's boundaries, but not being afraid to push their boundaries a little bit while also speaking your truth, I think you can find harmony and you can find balance. But the moment comes when we are pushy or being pushed at, when we feel rushed or we rush a conversation that's not ready to happen yet. If you can be methodical and think through the way that you want to word your spirituality to people who don't necessarily understand it, you'll probably be much better off and prepared for the conversation when it does get brought up, right? So think about how you want to express and word your truth to people who maybe are not open or receptive to that sort of way of life,
Mm-hmm.
and be patient. Be patient with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes a thing that I would say is that I know not everyone believes in that, but I personally believe in reincarnation. And that explains so much for me. And then that is how, because sometimes we don't have the same vision of death and everything. So that is how I would bring things up. And also, regarding conflicts, because I think many people want to know, how do I deal with conflicts when point of views are different? I would say be very wary of the spiritual ego.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we would so much like other people to understand things and remember their souls and where they originated from, that we want them to know everything. We insist, we want to save them. that's a spiritual ego. So I would say do some ego work in your day-to-day life prior to having interactions with non-spiritual people. It helps a lot. It helps a
Mm,
lot just understanding that we're not all at the same place. We're not all ready to be deep down in spirituality. Some people are old souls, but they are not spiritualist soul types. So they are much more focused on other stuff in their life, and they're not there yet. And there are young souls who are not ready to have that spiritual journey because they are at another level. And we were those young soul people before. And that helps having a lot of empathy for them and what they're going through.
mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully said, for sure. I
Mhm.
think we could have another episode too, just about it's not coming to me, but you said something that I thought would be a great topic. And if I remember it, I will tell you. Oh, I remember it. It was about, people thinking if you're spiritual or if you're a healer or a reader or a site, like it's about other people putting those of us who do this work on a pedestal. And then those of us who do this work feel pressure to be perfect. And I've been
Mm.
thinking through this a lot lately of to be a healer or a guide for someone else, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. And pretending to be perfect is ego.
Right.
So that's something that I've been really wanting to open up more about.
Mhm.
But I think that could be like a whole episode.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One thing I want to share, a funny story, and then I'm totally ready to open it up back up to you, and then we can close. But when I was a teenager and even in my early 20s, my grandmother who taught me energy healing would do it. She does it everywhere. If we're at a concert, if we are going out to dinner, if we are at a red light, if it doesn't matter where we are, right? If we're gonna go to a brewery and get a cider, like she will just connect to if she's like, oh my, this is aching or this hurts, or oh, Brittany, you're fatigued. Can I work on you? And you're like, sure.
She's
And we'll be
awesome.
like, we will be out in public. It could be at, the 4th of July fair downtown. You just one time I had fallen on some rocks at a waterfall and I scratched my knee. I think I was like 12. What did she do? Immediately at this waterfall with all these people looking at the waterfall, she started doing energy healing.
Yay.
She has no shame at all. She will never ever hide a part of who she is, which is so beautiful. And I've learned a lot from that. But it's funny if you've never seen energy healing and you're in high school and there are people around you looking at you because your grandmother's, feeling energy and moving her hands, and everyone's like, what is happening? It was embarrassing, I'll admit it. But when you're a teenager, and you're so focused on you're so self-conscious.
Mhm.
Now I don't care. I really don't. I don't care anymore. I'm used to it. I will clear myself all the time. I'll clear my energy more. I used to never do energy healing around anyone I was dating. They never once saw me do it.
Mhm.
But now that I'm engaged, my fiance sees me do it all the time. I work on him all the time. So you kind of grow into it as well, right?
Wow. And about your grandmother, I mean, this is it. This is what I was talking about being an inspiration. And for me, like, I'm not shy for my clients to see me do readings with my eyes closed and my hands moving. And my husband saw me do it, and I post videos online. There's one of me when I show people what I look like when I do readings. But I'm working through a fear of self-expression and a fear of judgment. And I'm not there yet, like your grandma is, but I feel like I don't know her, but I feel like she's such an inspiration to me. That is what I'm looking up to. I really want to fully be myself. And that's a big goal that my soul has. So yeah, people just be yourself and be that inspiring example.
Yeah, and do the best that you can. I mean, you're going to be the worst critic on yourself than anyone else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well said. Don't be a
Self-compassion.
jerk and always do your best.
Also, sometimes your best might look like laying in bed all day and not moving and binge watching some cheesy TV show and eating like popcorn.
Yes. Oh,
That's
yes. I did a post about that once, that you can be spiritual and binge TV shows, because this is what you need right now, because
fine.
you're so tired and you need a break from all the deep stuff. I mean, I find a lot of balance there, and um I find a lot of love too, because I often binge TV shows with my husband, my daughter, and it's some family time. So sometimes when you need to watch some cheesy romance movie or reality TV, don't worry, just go for it.
Yeah, and also we are human for a reason. Your soul wants to be human. Your soul wants to experience things that are very human. So
Mhm.
the fact that we judge ourselves for it, I think, comes from a very deep-rooted sense of our own insecurity and our own self-worth,
Yeah.
and what our religion has taught us
Mhm.
and what society has taught us about who we should be. But you can be human. You can enjoy
Yes.
things and be human. Some of the most spiritual people are the people that listen to punk rock, and just want to like rock out to whatever music is, whatever they like. So I actually had a client once that told me she felt bad for wanting to watch murder mysteries and listen to like rock music while she's working out.
Mm.
And it's really interesting because I personally don't see any of that as making someone less spiritual. I don't know.
Yeah, my husband is a spiritualist soul type, and he loves Iron Maiden. And he made me watch a documentary about them on YouTube. It's Flight 666, and these guys are incarnating their life missions. It's a wonderful story. They're old souls, and they're Iron Maiden. So
Yeah,
yeah, just be
I love
open.
it. I love it. We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
We'll definitely come back to it for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Tea with Intuitives podcast.
If you have a question for us, you can send it at teawithintuitives@gmail.com or via Instagram or YouTube.
Your love for this podcast helps us grow and reach more like-minded souls, so don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast.
Have a beautiful week.